I'm going to focus back in now a little bit on diet, because some of the concerns that people have about changing their diet is that they fear that somehow they need milk, especially vegetarians raised in India. It seems that they are raised with the belief that we need milk for calcium and protein, and so I'd like to share with you the most recent information that we have. So there are many health benefits to plant-based diets. I think I just moved something out of order there. And I want to make a distinction. Those people who write about or do research in plant-based diets don't always associate with vegetarianism or veganism as an ethical issue. You'll see the term plant-based because they want to be taken seriously in terms of the merits of the science. And they don't want to be confused with those who care about how animals are used overall. So you'll see both of those terms, plant-based and vegan, and I mean all of those terms, plant-based, vegan, and vegetarian. And what I noticed is that Dr. Esselstyn, who talks about reversal of heart disease, talks about a no-oil plant-based diet. Dean Ornish, who's a cardiologist, has shown reversal of heart disease using a low-fat vegetarian diet. T. Colin Campbell has showed the link between cancer and plant-based diet, actually between animals, and a reversal of cancer using plant-based diet. Dr. Neil Barnard from Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine uses the word vegan and has shown prevention of cancer as well as reversal of diabetes. And Dr. Gabriel Cousins, who promotes a raw vegan diet, has also shown reversal of diabetes. So the terms vary, the benefits cross many diseases. We already avoid meat and eggs and are 80% of the way to what's now considered a healthy diet. Now, like when my dad came, my parents came to the US in the late 60s, they were told that you must eat meat to be healthy. And things have changed tremendously, where now people have an understanding that vegetarian and plant-based and even vegan now is healthier. So let's take a little bit more of a look. So for example, Dr. Caldwell Esselstyn directs a cardiovascular prevention and reversal program at the Cleveland Clinic. He has written books, and the one called Prevent and Reverse Heart Disease explains how we can end the heart disease epidemic in this country forever by eating a plant-based diet. He, along with Dean Ornish, advised the former President Clinton. And former President Clinton is not exclusively vegan. However, he has been interviewed talking about the benefits of this plant-based diet for his health. And as part of his research, Dr. Esselstyn studied different cultures and found that people in Central Africa, Papua New Guinea Highlands, and the Tarahumara Indians in Mexico who eat plant-based diets have absolutely no heart disease. So I'm not going to say that Indian vegetarians are the same as these other populations. We actually know that we have a genetic predisposition to heart disease, and you may know plenty of vegetarians with heart disease. Consider whether veganism could be the next step to help us reduce our risk, in addition to other steps such as reducing oil and saturated fat in our diets. This slide we talked about. There's a large study, the European Prevention something cancer, I forgot what the I stands for, study, and a part of this study, the EPIC Oxford study, included 31,546 non-meat eaters. Is one of the largest studies of vegetarians in the world. You can see that thousands of men and women aged 20 to 97 are included, and most of these are meat eaters, but you can see even in this study, 2,596 vegans. Fish eaters, vegetarians, and especially vegans had a lower body mass index, which is correlated with risks of many chronic diseases than meat eaters. And especially vegans have a lower prevalence of high blood pressure, lower systolic and diastolic blood pressures. That's the higher and the lower number than meat eaters. So many benefits have been observed. T. Colin Campbell authored the China study, which is a study of dietary and lifestyle factors associated with disease mortality in China, examining the relationship between animal products and chronic diseases, including heart disease, diabetes, and cancers. People who eat a plant-based diet, avoiding animal products and refined carbohydrates, escape, reduce, or reverse the development of chronic diseases. And close to home, Kaiser Permanente recommends a plant-based diet. This came out in spring 2013. Research shows that plant-based diets are cost-effective, low-risk interventions that may lower BMI, blood pressure, hemoglobin A1C, so this marks the risk of diabetes or the level of the blood sugar in the previous few months, and cholesterol. This may also reduce the number of medications needed to treat chronic diseases and lower ischemic heart disease rates. Physicians should consider recommending a plant-based diet to all their patients, especially those with high blood pressure, diabetes, cardiovascular disease, or obesity. How many of you know someone who's an Indian vegetarian with high blood pressure, diabetes, heart disease, or obesity? So somehow this diet that's reversed some of these chronic diseases in Westerners has not produced the same benefits in our population. So we need to consider what else to do. So then the question comes up, what will you miss? And how many times, even as a vegetarian, do you get the question of how do you get enough protein? And then the question also comes up with dairy, how do you get enough calcium? Because people associate milk with calcium. So we need to acknowledge that too much of either calcium or protein is problematic. Calcium may deposit in arteries and in the kidneys, producing heart disease or kidney stones. Animal protein, as in milk, can also be linked to calcium loss, as well as bound to fat and cholesterol that are risks for many chronic diseases. The EPIC Oxford study that I mentioned earlier showed that there were no more fractures in vegans than others if at least 525 milligrams of calcium per day were eaten. So I don't want to give you the impression that calcium is not important. You need to get at least that much. But dairy is not the source and not the best source for all of us. And you can do very well getting enough calcium and protein on a plant-based or vegan diet. So good sources of calcium include collard greens, kale, mustard greens, broccoli, and okra. There are some plants which you might think, like spinach, has calcium, but there are some other compounds that make them not available to your body. And remember the principle of balance. For bone health, calcium needs to be balanced with other minerals like magnesium. I see your question, just hang on. And vitamins such as vitamin C. And it's really important to get enough weight-bearing exercise. And this question about bone health is especially important for older women who tend to be at greater risk for having loss of bone. So I'll just take that one question right now. What was the question?
Clarification, mustard greens is listed twice. Which is it?
Yeah, it says it's good and it's not good.
Oh, excuse me. I think it actually is, but I will double check. I'm not sure why that came up the second time. I'll double check. I'm pretty sure it's actually a good source. But it's oxalate that binds, so we just have to check and see if it's a high oxalate green, like spinach is. I think what I meant to say is beet greens. Beet greens is high oxalate. So this is a chart. This is the kind of thing you can look up, and we can't really go through each and every item, but you can see that there's a wide range of items in vegan foods that have calcium. And some things like molasses, if you take 2 tablespoons, it has 400 milligrams of calcium. Some of the other things that I mentioned are listed here. Tofu, if it's processed with calcium, is included, and this can be a good substitute for paneer in our Indian cuisine. And a number of other items, including just plain cooked soybeans, have some calcium. Almonds and almond butter can be a good source. Okay, question?
I just have a comment. Orange juice, actually, there are versions available at the grocery store with, say, fortified with vitamin D. You have to be careful because a lot of times it's fish.
Correct. So the comment is that, yeah, she's correct, that the vitamin D supplemented orange juice that you'll find in the refrigerated section is often D3, which is non-vegan. But what I noticed, interestingly, is if you get this in the frozen, often it's D2, which is a vegan version. So you can take a look at that. And if you don't feel that you're going to meet your calcium needs with foods, it's okay to take a supplement, and there are vegan sources. Calcium citrate is usually vegan, but you need to look out because there's also calcium sources that are not vegan. And similarly, you can see that there are items that have both calcium and protein that are included here. The first row here shows cow milk in comparison to sesame seeds, almonds, soybeans, nuts and seeds, and tofu. And again, like, this is pretty hard to digest like this. I'll make these slides available on Vegan Jain's, and you can take a look at your leisure. So some people worry about soy because a lot of vegan products are based on soybean. Isolated soy protein may increase insulin-like growth factor, like dairy protein, which could be a risk for developing cancer. Whole soy products, which you find in soy milk, soybeans, soy yogurt, tempeh, do not contain isolated soy protein and are not associated with insulin-like growth factor. Some data actually suggest that whole soy products prevent cancer. Those with thyroid disease should make sure to get enough iodine and balance soy with other plant protein intake. If you don't want to eat soy at all, the Indian diet has plenty of other options not requiring soy. You can have dal, you can have beans, you can have nuts, which is not even necessarily just Indian. There's many other things, so soy does not equate to vegan. And then there are some supplements that we should consider. B12, we talked about earlier, you can get a vegan B12 supplement, and if it's not already in the soy milk that you might drink, or the other items that might have B12 supplements. It is important to have 3 servings per day of a high calcium food, such as fortified soy milk or tofu, or almonds, nuts, or green vegetables, as I mentioned. Vitamin D2, or now there is a vegan D3 available, if you're not getting enough sun. And the skin tones that we have as Indians generally require 30 minutes of full body exposure during all year. And during certain months at the latitudes where we live, we're unlikely to get that. So most of us are vitamin D deficient, and it is necessary to check your levels and supplement. And there's other things like zinc, the precursor of omega-3 fatty acids and iodine, which you can talk to me more about later on. So since we're running out of time, this is just to illustrate that the vegan food pyramid includes a wide variety of foods. Choosing a vegan plate will be associated with better health. We can also think about how we eat, not just what we eat, in order to ensure good health. Eating mindfully and really appreciating the life that we are taking and how it's being used for us to have energy to do good in the world. And I wanted to just spend a couple more minutes to talk about everything that you've heard from the previous speakers and how it relates to us. Our place as Indian Americans in this society is now stable. I'm in a different place than my parents were when they immigrated. It's important for us to realize our strength and find allies, such as the speakers that we've had here today, and support each other. We need to take steps to change ourselves, and we can work together to take big steps to change society. Somebody asked about what we're doing to change the conditions that are producing this cruelty to animals. One of the things we can do, besides becoming vegan ourselves, is work to reduce subsidies from government that make meat and dairy cheap at the cost of our health and major healthcare dollars. And then I'm going to end with this as a way to wrap up what we've been talking about. And is Nick here? Nick Shaw? Great. And Nick is going to be our next speaker, so I'm going to transition to Nick in a second. So, you know, we've been talking about sacrifices, and we've been talking about how it's not actually that big of a sacrifice in some ways, but you are sacrificing some habits in other ways to make a change to a vegan lifestyle, including diet, including bags and non-leather cars and other choices that we might make. And I want to link this now back to my talk earlier about Jainism. The Jain path of purification is based on eliminating what we call kashayas, impurities in ourselves, such as anger, pride, and greed. Ours is a discipline of renunciation. What we value is tyag, which is renouncing materials and attitudes that do not advance us spiritually. We work hard to overcome attachments and cravings, rag, for harmful things. While giving up dairy or leather or silk may feel like tyag, this is part of our discipline, and there are both health and karmic benefits. And in the end, what are we here for? Good health is necessary for us for meditation and spiritual practice to develop ourselves and do good in the world.